You're running for fire commission. Talk to me about this. How did you get involved in this? What are your hopes? Why are you doing this?
So I got...
You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side. Break on through to the other side.
God bless America. Welcome to the Ranch, everybody. The podcast explores the people and happenings of Dry Creek Ranch, Eagle, and the greater Boise area. My guest today is the third and final candidate running for Eagle Fire District Commission. He was a hoot to talk to. Really, really fun guy. Has an incredible logistics background, which I thought to be really interesting. And he's also just a really involved citizen, which is beautiful. We talked at length about what he thinks the Eagle Fire is doing well and what he thinks he can bring to the commission and what he really feels the roles of the commission are. But I will let you hear from him. Without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Nate Murphy.
Pavilion. And one of the benefits of touring for a while, for 7 or 8 years, like I said, is getting to see every city, every state in the union. So I've been to every state. That's one of my claim to fames. And it is interesting to see all the large cities, some of the small cities, and just kind of get a little snippet of each type of culture, because every culture is a little bit different in the United States, so that was very beneficial to kind of see,
Dude, that's super cool. Yeah. So let me ask you something, because I haven't been very far, right? Like I grew up in Northern California. I went to college about 7-8 miles away from where I grew up, and then after college, eventually I moved with my wife about 7-8 miles away from the college, but only like 2 miles away from the town. Like I've been nowhere, right? My plan was, my real plan was actually to go to like Michigan or North Carolina or something like that for law school. And since I got into education and then all of a sudden it really took root quickly, I was like, wow, I'm stuck here now, right? Like you can't transfer a tutoring practice.
Right.
So when we moved up here, it was really like, this is the second place ever I've really ever experienced. My dad did live in Anchorage. So I went up there and spent some time there. Not a huge fan of Anchorage. But if you've been everywhere, how did you decide to move here? Right? Like of all of the awesome dive restaurants and bars and all of the music festivals and all of the outdoor stuff, how did you end up in Eagle?
Well, I was born and raised in Ventura County. In California, in the southern part, and lived in various cities around there. That's why I referenced the county. And when I came off the road, wife and I got married, my lovely wife, Kelly, and we had a daughter in 2012. And right as kind of she was coming up to school age, we kind of had a decision to make, because you don't want to... And, there are circumstances that may, call for this. But in our situation, we didn't want to move when she was already settled, already, solidified in a group and pull her from that kind of core. Right. But we were looking for something different. And we were looking at Colorado for a little bit and went there to look at some houses and stuff. And after I kind of started learning about the goings on in Colorado, I decided that probably wasn't the best for us, especially because I was traveling a little bit more at the time. And my wife didn't really know anybody out there, et cetera. My wife has some friends here who have been here for 20, 30 years that she's visited before. So a good community, while I was traveling. So we decided to move over here and kind of root ourselves. We moved out here in 2016 and haven't looked back, and just love Idaho in general and Eagle specifically. And so that's kind of what brought us here, was a change. People sometimes, the grass is green on the other side, as some say.
Right.
And, sometimes people who have grown up in, say, a heavy, snowy, wintry area, who grew up with that, they're kind of sick of it. So maybe they might go down to Florida, or maybe they may go down to a warmer place. Right. We were ready for a major change, and that's kind of what brought us over here. A smaller more neighbory feeling community as well. Just because, where we live in, there's just so many dang people. You tend to not have the sense of community,
right?
As you do have here. You don't have the ability to go talk to your state legislators as well out there and discuss what they did good, maybe what they did bad, this kind of thing. It's very disconnected out there, and so I think that connection, that homey feel, is why we love it.
This podcast is brought to you by MTU Studios. If you're looking to start a podcast or need content for your business or personal use, content of any type, please reach out to MTU Studios. MTUstudios.com. We'd love to help. Right. Look, I couldn't agree more. We moved here, and again, my wife had grown up very close to where we were living as well, about 30 minutes away. So neither of us really knew anything different. But the second I came up here, and I moved up here specifically because a friend of mine, dear friend, had moved up in 2020, and he moved up originally. His kids were on Zoom. He's got 3 kids. He's like, look, dude, they're dying. Like, they're not going to make it through this. We have to go somewhere that's in school, even if they have to wear a mask, which briefly, but so they moved up here, and it was originally just supposed to be like the 6-month thing. And he was like, no, we're going to be back. No problem. And pretty shortly after moving up, we're on a big group text, and he started like sending little videos and little pictures like, it's really cool up here. Like, it's different. And we're like, whatever, Mike, just come back. Like, I'm sick of hearing this. Like,
right.
when are you flying back? And then his wife, got a job and started working because, again, it was temporary. So they're like, look, let's just get through this hump and then we'll move back. Started taking root more and more. And when I realized that the area we were living and just California in general was really no longer tenable for the value sets that we had and the life we wanted to live, we started looking around very similarly. I had visited a friend in Salt Lake City a couple times, and I was like, this is not the spot. This is not it. Colorado was like, I think the writing's on the wall with Colorado. Like, we just knew it was like, there's no way we can do that.
Right.
Didn't want to hit Oregon, Washington, not for the life of us. I was like, that's just out of the pot into the fire, And ultimately, my buddy Mike had been up here, so I came up and visited, and I was like, oh, I see. Like, you can't really explain to somebody until they get here how different it is, especially somebody coming from a California setting where lifestyle is transactional. People would move into our neighborhood, have no interest in meeting us or understanding what we're doing. They're there for the schools. They're there for a job. They're there for the investment. They don't care. They don't like two neighbors down. I had no idea who that guy was. Well, 2 neighbors up, no idea who that guy was.
Just to bounce off of that, yes, exactly. Where we were living before, next door, you don't know your neighbor. We knew like 1 or 2 neighbors around the way because we tend to be outgoing and trying to meet neighbors and be friendly and be neighborly and stuff. But you get a lot of people who think that's weird. And like, why are
what are they selling?
Why are they trying to?
Is this an Arbonne thing? What is this?
But coming up here, we moved here. It was right before Snowmageddon, and my wife and I make Christmas cookies from my grandmother's recipe, old sugar cookies.
Look at you.
Love them. And the key is to get them really thin. So we made a bunch of cookies, Christmas cookies, because we came end of November in 2016 and made little kits and went to every single neighbor we had and handed out, hey, we're new in the neighborhood. Hey, this is our number. Give us a call if we can help, And so that's kind of how we wanted to start. We wanted to be open. We wanted to be friendly. We wanted to be helpful. But the thing that really did it was one of my neighbors across the way, because it was Snowmageddon. It was, the 20-year snow. But for me, it was the normal.
Sure.
If you look at perspective, you go, okay, my first winter here, and there's a bunch of snow. Okay, this is great. The next year when there wasn't as much, I thought to myself, where's all my snow? But anyway,
I want my money back.
but my neighbor, the first year, he had a little quad because we live on 5-acre parcels, kind of on Willow Creek Road.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of property to maintain, and we got a driveway that needs shoveling. And so my neighbor, realizing, hopefully he had the cookies, and he's like, okay, I'll help this guy out. But all of a sudden, I'm sitting after a big snow, I'm sitting in my living room, and I hear this quad going up and down the driveway. And at first I'm like, what's going on? But
Who's out there?
It was my neighbor plowing the driveway for me, knowing that I was new, knowing that maybe I didn't have the correct tools because we were literally a day in, not even unpacked. And I went out there and introduced myself. I brought him a beer, said thank you, and that set the precedent. That set the tone on how to treat people, on how to be neighborly. And from that day forward, it's been bend over backwards for everybody, in the neighborhood or, right. However many people that we have. So,
right. Benjamin Franklin, I believe, was really outspoken with moving somewhere and immediately asking your neighbor for a favor. It was like, because if you go somewhere and you just say, hey, I'm like, if you need anything, just let me know. You don't actually jumpstart the relationship based on reciprocity. If you go somewhere and even ask them for a small favor, like, hey, could you help me with this? I mean, I'm sure they had to move like big ass wood things back in the day, right? Like this bookshelf. It's not IKEA, baby. I could move this bookshelf. They come and help you. And they're like, hey, listen, let me return the favor. Like, just let me know. Now you have this relationship where the person's going to be less averse to actually asking for something. And then that allows you to help. Because if you want to help, and you don't like get that ball rolling, it's going to be very hard. So, yeah, that's awesome.
I couldn't agree more with that sentiment. That's the way it is around our neighborhood. And we do so. Like for July 3rd, which is the day Idaho became a state. I try to preempt July 4th because I just love Idaho so much, and so we celebrate July 3rd. And we do stuff on July 4th too, but we a couple times had invited 50, 60 people to our house, had a little band, and cooked for them, and just to bring that sense of community even closer, And I mean that created lifelong friends, and everybody can kind of come together, and so that's kind of an important thing, in my opinion.
What are and again, I know this has nothing to do with the Fire Commission, so I apologize. I know this is your interview.
It's all good.
We have plenty of time, but what are the unique aspects of July 3rd? Like, obviously, Idaho becomes a state. Great. Like, what are the things you overtly celebrate? Because they didn't become a state through like a revolution or a conflict. Right. So
just to mark the occasion. And
So what's the food? Like, what do you guys cook? So potato skins, or what are we talking about?
So we do some barbecue in our neighborhood. We've got and that's another. So July 3rd, but then we also have something called the Arctic Challenge, and I'll get back to the July 3rd. But so our neighbors come together, and that's our brisket competition. Mm-hmm. So every neighbor gets together. They bring their smoker to my driveway. And I think it's been in my driveway just because the logistics work out better there. And so drop them there. Everybody cooks brisket, and then a couple of the elders in the neighborhood will say we task as being judges, and they're okay with it. They always tell me as well that they take money for bribes too. But. But
I don't know if anybody's paid them, but I've won every year. I don't know
exactly. So we do briskets as a neighborhood, and kind of do that as a little trophy. Awesome. And
you guys have a trophy?
I do.
Do you get new plaques every single year? Like
well,
on the
we
base
have stickers.
Of it?
We have stickers. Yeah. But it's currently at my house. My wife tries to move it though. She doesn't, because I put it beautifully centered on the mantle where it should be.
It's a major award.
It's a huge award.
A major award.
But then sometimes I'll find it like down on the bottom. I'm like, come on, honey, put it back. It's just constant battle. But we actually neglected this past year, so I've got to hold on to it for 2 years. But we're going to do it again in January, and I'm sure it'll go to another neighbor, Tom, who is very good at what he does. He's actually the current baby back ribs champ of the neighborhood. But on July 3rd, I think we did like tri-tip and then burgers and dogs for the kids, that kind of thing.
Nice.
So
just standard fare. And then, of course, July 4th, same thing. So you just keep it going.
And then July 4th, it's just kind of we kind of mellow out, because July 3rd was, a super fun
big
night.
Thing,
And so, but yeah.
That's awesome. I'm a big fan. So I actually Michael Pollan, the food and ag critic, was one of my clients for
cool.
SAT tutoring, and they invited me. This is how I learned how to smoke pig. They invited me. They realized I was this unrepentant carnivore, and so they were doing this pig, and his son was like, "Dad, we should invite Matt." And I was like, oh, "I'll come." So I come, and so they let me come the night before the party where they're putting the pig on, and they had a really customized smoker. So it's not like nothing you could buy. So they had to get a welder, and they essentially made they had a giant, it had to be at least 4 feet, essentially giant like wok, right? That was, that seconded as a fire pit, right? So in their yard, they had this giant like wok thing. And then they built this dome cage. They had this welder build this dome cage over it. They put the pig on the grate in the wok, put the dome steel cage over it, and then they'd wrap it in all kinds of things. So essentially the smoker could breathe very effectively, and then they just slip coals underneath.
Perfect.
Underneath the canvas thing. So I went home, me being the guy I'm like, I could do that. So I went home, and my wife was very thankfully pregnant, and it was awesome. And I was like, hey, for our baby shower, let me do a pig. So like, shout out to her, man, having the guts to let me do a whole pig for like 100 people for this baby shower. So that was my first pig. So I built this pig smoking thing out of scrap material that I had. And I've had it since. And I've done tons of pigs, like for weddings and for major celebrations. A buddy was turning 30, and then he had like this massive 150-person family reunion. But yeah, dude, I love the 24-hour smoking event. I love
because it's
great.
hard work.
Yes.
And you have to
You've
be
never
dedicated.
been so
you
exhausted.
have to be dedicated.
Oh, you got to be committed. I'm checking it every half an hour.
You can't do much other, anything else, you know. So
yeah, it's a good time. So listen, God bless you, sir. We're here. You're running for fire commissioner. Talk to me about this. How did you get involved in this? What are your hopes? Why are you doing this?
So I got asked by some local prominent politicians if I would consider, and I'll just kind of leave that alone for right now. But it was not anything I was considering. I've thought about maybe running for state kind of stuff, but I still have a job. I can't take off January through April. And then also after, the rest of the year still be engaged, to warrant, the level of responsibility that, sure. Includes. I work for a living. But something like fire commissioner, after I was asked, I thought about it. I was like, I could do that. I could make that work and do it to the best of my ability, and not neglect the time requirement, because these days I've got a little bit more time than I did when I was younger and just running and gunning. But the previous elected fire commissioner in our sub-district, who's I'm sure you've heard about, Gary Stillwell. Mm-hmm. So he's kind of like the patriarch of our neighborhood.
Oh, nice.
His family owned all that land out on Willow Creek Road, and he built houses everywhere and created that I guess I'll call it a subdivision kind of. His name is still on the streets and this kind of stuff. So excuse me. Gary came to some of our July 3rd events.
Did he throw his hat in the ring for the brisket?
No, we invited him. We invited him just to come as a welcomed guest. So I've met him and a couple times. We weren't super close, but we were very neighborly. I actually bought a used tractor from him, and so we knew each other. And he had been fire commissioner for 20 years, I think, roughly, plus or minus. So after I got asked, I kind of inquired, to a couple other people who I know in the area, and kind of got their thought, and they were very positive about it. And then I called up Gary and kind of said, hey, what do you think if I were to run in your place, now that you've left the district? Because the whole reason why he stepped down is because his house was for sale, sold his house, moved away, moved out of district, therefore no longer eligible. Sure. Right. So spoke with him, and he was very generous. He's like, yeah. He's like, I was thinking about you for that, and da-da-da. And he's like, yeah, I think that's a good thing. And, and so that kind of gave me some additional confidence on that. I'm like, okay, cool.
I love it when old people, not to put Gary down, but I love it when old people are like, it's a good thing. It's like, I love that because I don't use that phrase, and when they're like, that's a good thing. They have just such a broad concept of like time and placement and implications, like a good thing.
Yeah.
God,
well,
you're a good thing.
Especially in Idaho, and real quick on a digression, when I first got here, one of the elders in our neighborhood who's been here forever, he's kind of like our Yoda of the neighborhood because, I've come to him for questions. We had some cattle get loose, and because we grew a couple steers, you got to create your own meat if you're going to be smoking, you know what I mean?
Bless him.
But
do you still do that?
We're taking a year off to let the pasture kind of
All right, we'll visit this
anyway.
Off air.
Back to why. So I asked around. I've been involved in state stuff for at least a few years, and I thought, what, this is a good chance to impact the community in a positive way, and it's not because of the pay, I can tell you that, because it's pretty much a volunteer job, but I think that is a true definition of a public servant, is when you're doing it, you're literally serving the public, and that is my number one goal. That is why I did it, was to, be a voice for citizens who want a voice that isn't, I guess, controlled by any other interests, for lack of a better term. So unbiased citizen oversight is kind of my credo, and those are my intentions. So,
gotcha. So talk to me about this then. Knowing what you now know about the fire district, because obviously I assume once you decided to run, mass education, it's not like you were hanging out at the fire department every single day and they're like, hey, let's just sign this guy up. It's kind of like you were obviously a capable, engaged citizen prior. They're like, hey, this would be a perfect unbiased installation into the commission. What do you see that Eagle Fire is doing well, and what do you see that you really feel like you could bring some expertise to spruce up?
Well, overall, the Eagle Fire District is in great shape. Financially, the books are looking good. They're staying on track with budget and putting some money away for those projects that are coming up. The culture of the firefighters and how they respond and are treated within the Eagle Fire District is just amazing. The firefighters do such a good job responding, obviously, to calls, but also engaging with the community. They got the boot drive, they got a bunch of other donation stuff that they do, and it's a community thing, and they're really great people. I had a chance to go on a ride along and had a chat with some of them, visited all the fire stations, and just a really good group of people. So from the group of people perspective, the culture, I think they're doing great. From the standpoint of the financials, I think they're doing great. And so this really isn't, hey, I'm going to come in here and change X, Y, Z. This is more, I want to keep it as great as it is. I don't want it to devolve from where we stand right now. So that's kind of where I am at, to sustain the current level of excellence that currently exists.
Gotcha.
So that's kind of what, where I'm at.
Understood. Makes sense. What do you feel like? So again, very complimentary of Eagle Fire. Awesome. I think they're doing a great job too. They actually rolled up to my neighborhood for Halloween. Like, we looked out the window, we saw a fire truck. We're like, oh no, maybe like a kid slipped or something. No, they came out with bags of candy.
That's so
I was
great.
like, God, man,
That
you
is
just
so great.
Oh, it was so, the kids lost their minds. Just like, because I thought someone was literally dying, and then like, no, they're like throwing candy at the kids.
Or someone just had a really realistic fireman outfit or something. Right.
This one dad in the neighborhood actually built a TIE fighter and an X-Wing on top of wagons and was driving them around the neighborhood behind his golf cart.
He deserves an award.
I was like, you sir,
easy.
That's it. It's over. So to sustain it, all right. So let's say, hey, look, let's sustain it. Let's keep it as great. What are the particular things that you feel like you bring that will allow you to sustain it? Is it like your logistics background? Is it your because again, that's a big piece of you professionally, logistics and managing a whole ton of moving pieces. What is it that you feel like you bring specifically to allow us to keep it at a high level?
Well, I do a lot of negotiating. On a day-to-day basis, I'm negotiating with producers who don't have enough money, but then they want more stuff this way. And so, the key to a negotiation is that both sides kind of leave feeling that they didn't win huge, but they got the job done. So negotiating, there's going to be a lot of stuff coming up that's going to require negotiation. And I feel like that's a big strong suit. I always question things. I don't just take for granted if somebody tells me something. I'm a problem solver. A lot of times we have a situation in where I work where, say, a truck breaks down with essential equipment in it or whatever. Okay, it's now you can't say sorry. It's figure out the solution and figure it out quick and make it as good as you can make it, given the circumstance. So there's the problem solving, there's the negotiation, there's also the fiscal side of it. Keeping budgets intact, making sure that we're not overdoing it, and making sure what we are spending our money on is the most efficient use of public funds possible, because ultimately the position, in my humble opinion, is a citizen oversight board. We have to make sure that these funds are being spent wisely, and ultimately our boss are the citizens, the ones who are paying us. So we need to keep that in mind as well.
Gotcha.
But on the other side of it, you don't want to pull away from the expected level of service. Right. Because that's the whole purpose of the fire district. But you need to just kind of keep an eye on where these funds are going and make sure. And, also for there's fires, people are talking about fire stations, and there's plans in the works for certain things. And people get, I sat down with the chief and to kind of get some more insight on kind of what his issues were or what is going well, et cetera. And he's saying I was having a hard time getting blueprints for a new station on the preliminary process of looking at new facilities. And it's like, yeah, one person wanted to charge me like $1 million for some plans and and we obviously realized that that's too much.
Million's a lot.
And then he's like, I called somebody and we got it down to like, I don't know, $300,000 or $400,000 for blueprints and this kind of stuff. And, to me, I'm thinking, just as an example, and I'm not sure where he has gone from here.
Sure.
But just at the time when I was speaking with him, I'm like, yeah, that's ridiculous. We got to figure out a better solution, and as I was door knocking around the neighborhood, I met a neighbor who I've never met before, who lives kind of close by. And he happens to be a retired BLM firefighter who's, I don't want to say his main job, but he was at very minimum involved heavily in creating new stations for the BLM. And he's like, yeah, I got some plans and that would work probably good. And so he's like, I'll just get him for you. I'll just get him to you, And so he is kind of on the hunt and kind of digging that stuff up. But there's a value save, trying to figure out, okay, well, guess what? We don't need to spend, however many tens of thousands of dollars it might have been for this particular product. We can figure out a way to save that money if we don't need to spend it. These kind of instances where going outside the box thinking is kind of necessary, I think.
Right. And again, when you're spending taxpayer dollars, that's of the utmost importance. Look, if you could have saved $10,000, even save $1,000, that's literally money somebody went to work and toiled and efforted and paid you in trust, right? And
Correct.
If you're wasting any of it, then it's kind of like, look, man, that's not to say that the current commission is wasting it,
no,
but
no.
This is a priority value set.
Correct.
Right.
And I'm sure they are going to get through it, but I'm just, as an example,
yeah.
These kind of things we look at,
Right. Now, with the budget, really interesting way that I've understood Idaho does things. In California and other states, you have limiting increasing your property taxes, right? So specifically in California, you have Prop 13, which says, hey, look, once you purchase your home, property taxes can only go up so much per year. Fine. I very much enjoy that. And again, it prevented people. My dad told me from, like the 70s and stuff, that the property taxes were like, more than their mortgages and
right.
So they put Prop 13 in, steadied it out, no sweat. They don't have that here. Right. So what they have here is unlimited property taxes. Your property tax can go up however much you want, but they artificially limit that, or excuse me, not artificial, but they restrict that by limiting how much departments can increase their budget. So for the fire can only go up 3% per year.
Right.
But with the increase in population, presumably the demand on fire will go up more than 3%. It will theoretically outpace. So if, say, the area grows by 10% in population, the 3% budget increase annually, presumably at some point will be insufficient. One, do you share that view, or do you think the 3% is sufficient? And two, if you feel like the 3% potentially in the future at some point may not be, how do we address that?
Well, it's tough to, my crystal ball, as they say, is in the shop, and it hasn't worked for a while. I don't know. They say I'll get it back soon, but right now it's working. Obviously there are communities that are coming on board to the district, and you're going to have growth with that. But, there are also impact fees that offset some of that growth. I always say that growth should pay for itself. Otherwise, right. What's the point, Right. So ultimately that's working right now. I think there's, I think maybe just under 800 homes over in Avamore currently, but they're due to grow. So for now, I think it's okay. Once we see projections of how many homes we're talking about, then we can dig into the details of, hey, this next fiscal year, maybe we should, think about doing A or B. But in my opinion, it's. And, people say, oh, I'm going to look out 5 or 10 years. Well, like I said, let's work with what we have. We do we do budgets annually. And yes, we can look out beyond that. But for right now, it's going good. Plus with the impact fees, I'm fine with leaving it at that threshold limit for the time being. However, I'm sure the commission would reserve the right to change that opinion as it necessitates.
Right. And you can address it as it required.
Correct.
Eagle is getting more and more expensive, right? And that's just, we have inflation. It's nobody's fault. Certain aspects of the community, okay, let me walk this back. The 8 and 9% nationally experienced is not anybody in this local area's fault, right? Let's be clear on that. And as such, public service jobs like fire and law enforcement, it's harder and harder to attract people to those, right? And get the highest quality. You can always attract somebody at some particular pay, but is the best and brightest and most capable person. That's a difficult thing, right? Because again, now houses are getting more expensive, options are getting fewer. You don't want people working in Eagle Fire driving 45 minutes, or something like that, unless they really want to live in that area. What do you think can be done to continue continue supporting the thriving Eagle Fire culture to keep making it worth it for people to come in and continue their careers, either start careers with Eagle Fire or continue their careers with Eagle Fire?
Well, I think number one is to talk and liaise with the fire chief, because he understands and is dialed into exactly where they're at with recruitment and this kind of thing. So I think that's an important aspect. It shouldn't be something that one of the commissioners just blindly goes for. You gotta talk with the chief, the battalion chiefs, get a feel, what's going on. It is tough. There's less people applying for these jobs. You want to make it attractive, but at the same time, you got to kind of keep an eye on the community around you. Right. You got to keep an eye on the population versus the quantity of fire stations versus the quantity of current firefighters. So all of this can be looked at with statistics. I was kind of looking at Boise Fire, because I know that they have been kind of put up as the benchmark for, and if we're talking about pay, they've been put up as the benchmark. And looking at their statistics, they've got roughly, for the sake of round numbers, 300,000 people in the Boise and Garden City in their area of responsibility. Yeah, right. On their website, they say they have roughly 300 employees. I know they're not all firefighters. There's some administrative and et cetera, but let's just, for the sake of round numbers. So that's one firefighter roughly per 1,000 people, right? And then you look at Eagle, and there's roughly 38,000 in the district. There's currently 3 stations, and there's roughly 50 employees. So if you look at that, in Eagle, we're actually have one firefighter per less than 1,000 people. I think it's I don't have the exact math in front of me, but maybe 700 or 800 people. And it's kind of a similar situation when you kind of look at it like that. So yes, we want to hire some more as other stations kind of come online, but at the same time, we got to keep it in perspective and understand the goals and the features of the community, and not overdo it, but at the same time make sure response time is acceptable. Sure. and because that's what's really important. And so, talking with some of the firefighters, they love, I asked the same question to them. I'm like, how do you, what do you like? They're like, oh, we love it. It's Eagle, and
what do you like? We love it.
Yeah.
We just love it.
It's Eagle. And, so that culture and our community also is important in the overall decision one makes when they decide to become a firefighter and where they want to go.
Sure.
Looking at the calls per, and Boise has roughly the Boise Fire Department. They have roughly, I forget the exact number, but multiples more calls per firefighter per year than Eagle does as well. And it's so, yes, we want to attract people, but I also think it, being in Eagle, it's an attractant all of its own as well. Sure. So yes, it's important. We have to listen to the chief. I don't think we overdo it right away, but at the same time, there will be positions that need to be fulfilled, and we just if there's an issue that pops up, then we look at that issue and we solve the issue. But as for right now, it seems like it's grooving on the right path. So.
Gotcha. Speaking of additional firefighters or more calls, so the ratio you brought up really reminded me of the whole argument with Eagle Police Department, right? And the ratio of like 1 per 1,000, and we added two more deputies recently, and some people say, hey, look, we got to get to a ratio. Some people say we don't. That's none of our affair. But my question is more looking at the capacity within a police department to add incrementally, right? It's like, all right, look, if you, Nate and I agree, like, because we're smart guys on this somehow, I don't know, we agree that we need two more police officers, we can get that and get the level of service out of those 2 more police officers, or 3 more, or 4 more. But we can add them as necessary. With fire, you can add additional firefighters, but you only have so many engines. You only have so many trucks, right? You only have so many houses where you can store these things. And those are not small, discrete little like, oh, let's bring on 1 firefighter. Let's bring on 1 deputy, something like that. Because of that, you have to do like a mass investment, right? So if it's determined at some point in the future, it's like, hey, the response time is no good. You're years away from actually having a meaningful check against that response time and bringing it back down. To that end, there's some people that are saying we really need the 4th firehouse, like now, right? Like it needs to be put through as quickly as possible because you don't want to get behind the 8 ball. And again, your crystal ball is somewhere else. I got it. But do you think the priority should be, look, let's get ahead of these things in anticipation of what we know is coming down the pipe, which is likely more growth and more population? Or do you think, hey, look, we're not going to let the response time get out of hand, and we should have plenty of flexibility in there to, get additional trucks or engines or houses as we see fit within a timely manner?
Yeah, absolutely. You need to kind of ponder these things and get ahead of things that you know that are going to happen. It's just a matter of when they're going to happen. Right. Many are saying that the new station down off Eagle Road is a priority. Some are saying that the training facility is a priority, and I agree. The training facility is a priority. Other people are looking towards Avamore as a priority. Other people are looking at more firefighters, having it be 4 per engine as opposed to 3, which we're at right now. Other people say we need to increase pay across the board. The thing is these things cannot all happen at once. We need to liaise with the chief and liaise with the citizens and the other board members, and we need to determine, okay, yes, we want to do all these great things, but you cannot do all these great things at once given the current budget, right? Without finding money somewhere. So let's focus on one thing. Let's make sure that's good to go, right? Not ignoring everything else, but it's just, you cannot do all these things at once, no matter who, is saying that they want all the shiny new things right now,
right?
So it's proper growth. Think about things, make sure we save money on this project because therefore we can bank it on this project. Sure. You know what I mean? So all these things are important, but it's just a matter of which one is the most important, and some would say the Eagle station is priority number 1.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Talked about growth, culture, what you bring to the table, what Eagle's doing right now, no crystal ball. What have I missed?
I would encourage citizens, and I get text from people, hey, who should I be voting for? Da, da, da. And maybe you've gotten that too. I don't know, but just from friends.
People know better than to ask me. I'm like, watch the shows. I'm not saying anything.
They're like, who are you voting for? Da, da, da. And I would just leave with, I would prefer that more people dig into the candidates that they're looking to support, including me. Anytime I vote for somebody or something, I try to analyze this thing with with data, with all this, any resource available, and try to make an informed decision based upon my set of values. I encourage, the populace to peel the onion a little bit. Let's look a little bit deeper because everybody, including myself, tends to say nice things about themselves when they are on a podcast or on their website. Like, you rarely get the truth from these sort of.
Are you saying you lied on your website, Nate?
I'm just including myself in the general, but good question. Peel the onion, take a look. Let's do it. Let's really see who these people are, because as we know from national politicians, a pretty smile and an eloquent form of speaking isn't necessarily the only thing we should be looking at. So in Idaho, and I don't know if you're familiar with this, maybe you are, there's on the Secretary of State website, they've got a campaign finance portal called the Sunshine Law, and you can type in any candidate, and any donor, and then see who's financing these candidates or what have you. And I think that is crucial in determining, is this person being supported by somebody who I share my values with, that's a peel the onion move, just to take it a little bit deeper. But, I wish more people would vote for these elections, because, not only is this not a presidential year, it's not a midterm year, it's like this weird subset odd year election, and looking back in time, I think 2021, the year when the world went mad, there was about 25% of people voted, which I guess I kind of get, because people were staying home, et cetera. But in 19, it was about, 30 roughly. And that's just not good enough.
Right. The apathy vote can't win.
Right.
Well, Nate, listen to me. Thank you for coming on. And speaking of Sunshine, I was actually, you guys got the nod over the Sunshine video, because I was planning on doing this whole last week, taking a bunch of time and making a Sunshine Report video and just showing like, hey, look, this is just where the money came from for all these people. I have no opinion about it.
Because that is such an unbiased tool to deliver to the citizens, and you go ahead and look, and whatever makes you feel good or whatever you like, then there you go. I think that's brilliant to do, by the way.
Okay, yeah, I thought it was a good idea too, but I ended up interviewing you and Brian and Clyde, so I'm gonna see if I can squeak something out, because again, I think it is really important. And I even knew about it, and it took me weeks to like, I guess I got to go click on it. And then there was like a drop down box. I'm like, I got to fill it. I got to like, it's so amazing how I even know these things are out there. And I'm curious, and I'm so lame. I'm like, I got to like type in Nate Murphy. Like, yeah, it's ridiculous. But again, I think it's really important. And again, so the Sunshine Law for Idaho, for anybody listening, go check it out.
It's
like,
amazing.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
But Nate, thank you so much for taking the time. I know this was a last minute thing, so you had to rearrange things. I really appreciate you coming in and sharing your perspective and helping the voters dig a little deeper, right? Because again, the video format, especially, people really enjoy consuming, and you've really given people things to think about. So I appreciate you. Thank you for running.
And real quick, Matt.
Yes, go.
Thank you for your service, for your engagement. I looked on your YouTube, and you pretty much had everybody, less a couple people, but you've done a lot of good work, and I'm not trying to blow smoke, but just thank you for being an engaged citizen as well.
Absolutely. And let me tell you, man, I got a lot of cool stuff coming up. It's good stuff. So, Nate, thank you. Good luck with the election.
Thank you, sir.
I'll talk to you sometime soon.
Thank you, sir.
All right. This podcast is brought to you by MTU Studios. If you're looking to start a podcast or need content for your business or personal use, content of any type, please reach out to MTU Studios. MTUstudios.com. We'd love to help.